Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into a fascinating, kind of hidden world that most golf fans never even realize is happening right under their feet. We're talking about architectural stewardship in golf. More specifically, we're unpacking the legacy of preservation, Gil Hanse, and the soul of golf architecture. We're going to look really closely at the absolute dedication it takes to protect the literal ground this sport is played on. So picture this. You're standing on a famous century-old championship tee box, right? Early morning, the dew is still fresh on the grass. You know, thousands of golfers have stood in that exact spot. Major champions, club members, weekend warriors. Now, over the decades, the grass has changed, the trees have grown way taller, and man, the technology, the clubs, the balls, how far everything flies, has completely evolved. So how does a century-old championship tee still feel absolutely timeless today? How does it survive all that change without losing its original magic? Well, it's definitely not by accident. That timelessness, it's the result of quiet, meticulous preservation. That magical feeling of stepping back in time is actually carefully curated by unseen caretakers. They're like the fierce protectors of golf's history. They constantly have to balance modern demands, faster greens, players hitting the ball a mile, against the original spirit of the grounds. It's this incredibly delicate balancing act to maintain the very soul of the landscape. Okay, let's dive into Section 1, the illusion of timelessness, protecting the soul of the game. Think about the sheer weight of this responsibility. We're talking about preserving the work of absolute legends. Donald Ross, A.W. Tillinghast, Alistair Mackenzie, Harry Colt, Charles Blair Macdonald. These are the giants who literally shaped the game of golf as we know it. Maintaining their masterpieces carries an enormous weight. It takes an extraordinary amount of respect to ensure that a modern golfer who's teeing it up with a high-tech titanium driver experiences the exact same strategic genius and psychological challenge that the architect intended 100 years ago for guys swinging hickory shafts. Which brings us to Section 2. Meet architect Gil Hanse, bridging the golden age with the future. Now, to bridge that golden age with the future, you need a seriously elite pedigree. And Gil Hanse, he is essentially an architectural archaeologist. He's a true dual threat in a business where most folks really only specialize in one thing. Look at this 5-star reputation across the board. Restoration excellence, original design, historical preservation, strategic architecture, and lasting influence. In an industry where architects often want to bulldoze a site to leave their own mark, or conversely, they freeze a course in time, making it unplayable today, Hanse has this rare ability to do both perfectly. He builds internationally acclaimed modern courses from scratch, while simultaneously being the world's foremost authority on classical restoration. Let's trace how this legacy actually built up over time. Flashback to 2016. His original design for the Olympic golf course debuted during golf's historic return to the Games in Rio. Just imagine the pressure of designing the venue reintroducing golf to the global stage after over a century. Then, from the 2010s straight through to today, he's been the go-to guy trusted with restoring golf's most treasured championship venues, getting them ready for the intense scrutiny of U.S. Opens and major championships. Because of this continuous, high-profile run, today he stands as the undisputed authority on classical architecture. Moving on to Section 3, the art of restoration, an act of stewardship. This stewardship, it's not just about pushing dirt around. It's a painstaking process defined by profound humility and an insatiable curiosity. It's perfectly captured in his guiding mantra. Every historic golf course has a story waiting beneath the turf. The architect's responsibility is not to rewrite it, but to reveal it. Man, that is powerful. Before moving a single grain of dirt, Gil Hanse actually listens. He spends countless hours analyzing the land, digging up old topographical maps, and essentially channeling the original architect. He treats the ground itself like a historical document that needs deciphering. To really understand the stakes here, put yourself in his shoes for a second. You're standing on a century-old fairway, holding a faded 1920s blueprint. Should a bunker stay exactly where it is today because modern players hit it 50 yards further? Or should it go back to its exact original location to preserve the true historical dimensions of the whole? And what about the environment? Say there's a 60-year-old oak tree. Chopping it down might absolutely enrage the local club members who love the shade and the look of it, but keeping it might completely block the strategic risk-reward shot the original architect so brilliantly designed. These are agonizing, high-stakes decisions. You can't just answer them on a whim. They demand incredible patience, deep historical research, and honestly, the courage to make unpopular decisions for the sake of the design's integrity. So, The crucial point is that a truly fine restoration rarely announces itself. It simply reveals what had slowly disappeared over time. Here are the 3 steps. Step 1. You widen a fairway. Why? To restore the original angle of attack, letting players strategize their approach instead of just hitting down a narrow, overgrown hallway. Step 2. Recover the green contour. This brings strategic putting options back to life, honoring the subtle slopes lost to decades of top dressing. And Step 3. Reposition a bunker to remind golfers that risk and reward were always part of the original vision. To a casual observer, these are tiny details, but for students of the game, this is the literal preservation of history. Let's look at Section 4, Masterpieces Old and New, Proving the Philosophy. Let's see how all of this plays out in the real world. Take his stunning restoration at the Los Angeles Country Club's North Course. His objective there was profound restraint. It was all about honoring the original architect, George C. Thomas Jr., meticulously restoring that rugged, historic bunkering and refining the green contours to prep it for the 2023 U.S. Open. Now contrast that incredibly restrained restoration with Streamsong Black in Florida, which opened in 2017. Built on reclaimed phosphate mining land, there was no historic architect to follow here. It was a total blank slate. And man, Hanse unleashed bold, expansive imagination, massive greens, sweeping dramatic vistas. It just proves that respecting history doesn't stifle innovation. Actually, understanding the past provides a rock-solid foundation for building thrilling new classics. Which brings us to Section 5, Inspiring the Next Generation, the Ripple Effect. Hanse's mastery has created a massive ripple effect, fundamentally altering the mindset of the entire golf architecture profession for decades to come. He operates on this core definition of great architecture. It begins with respect for the land, the history, and the golfer, treating history as a foundation, not a limitation. We live in an age where developers can basically bulldoze and reshape any landscape with heavy machinery. But Hanse, he leads by example. He brilliantly illustrates that true architectural wisdom and beauty usually begin with restraint rather than force. And young architects are absolutely taking notes. They're heavily mimicking his meticulous approach. They're diving into archives to study original plans. They're analyzing historic aerial photos to see how a course has drifted over the decades. They review club records and literally walk the properties for days just to feel the natural roll of the landscape before a shovel ever hits the dirt. Because of Hanse, the whole industry, clubs, developers, builders, they're all rediscovering the vital importance of strategic width, natural contours, and heavy historical research, instead of relying on dramatic earth-moving and temporary architectural fads. Ultimately, the absolute core takeaway of Gil Hanse's legacy is this. Progress and preservation are not opposing ideas. They are partners. By treating them as partners rather than enemies, he ensures that the game's greatest architectural masterpieces remain historically authentic while still being wonderfully playable, challenging, and totally relevant for tomorrow's generation of golfers. So, I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought to ponder. If history is the foundation for the future, what stories are waiting to be revealed in the landscapes around you? Next time you step onto a historic golf course, or honestly, any historic space at all, take a moment to look past the surface. Think about the unseen caretakers, the original visionaries, and the quiet, continuous act of preservation that lets you step back in time. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep looking for those hidden stories.